Everyone. Today we are going to start off with the superintendent search process workshop. We have Dr. Green here today with us, but we'll start out with roll call with Mr. French. Oh, sorry, it's 5:34. 5:30.
I don't need this on the roll call. Okay. Mrs. Green.
Here.
Mr. President, Mr. Gerhard.
Here.
Hawkins.
Here.
Mrs. Hilton.
Here.
Holly is absent. Mrs. Lear.
Here.
We have a quorum.
I'm getting feedback. Are you guys hearing it?
I can find out.
How about now? Is that better?
Yes.
So as part of our workshops, we do offer an opportunity for the public to comment. This opportunity is based on workshop item only. We'll have 2 additional opportunities for public to comment later on in the regular agenda. Do we have any public comment this evening about the superintendent search process workshop? Hearing none. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to 1.04. This is discussion superintendent search process. Dr. Green, would you please walk us through the items we have on the agenda today?
Thank you. Good to see everybody. And so I'm going to leave my mask on if that's appropriate. If you can hear me, if you have any trouble hearing me, let me know. So let's do a couple of things. Number one, I wanted to just talk to you about the contract for a second. I know that I emailed it to you. We've talked about it a couple of weeks ago at the board meeting, and also the committee went over it. So was there any concerns of anything in the contract? Are you guys kind of all set? Rachel, you were in on that. Mike was, and then Kelly, or she might have missed that one. So, or no. So there are a couple minor little changes that I understand the administrative, the district is doing, and so it would be no big deal, but we would try to incorporate that into this when those decisions are made at the district level. So if that's okay, what I would like to do is send that contract to the MASB attorney, if that would work. And I know Rachel looked it over, but does that sound okay? And just make sure that we're not missing anything. It's a standard contract, but I think you're just doing our due diligence. Okay, I'll do that. Second
Dr. Green,
thing,
we
yes.
don't need to take action formally on that,
No.
do we? It's just, okay.
You will when you actually approve the contract. So the way this works is we will send this contract to the final candidates if we have, the process, and then if you actually offer the position, then you actually negotiate the terms in the contract. So then that person has a chance to look it over as well and then agree to it. And ultimately, then you approve it later when you're approving the person. Okay? Mm-hmm. All right, so the other thing then was the questions. And so you have questions in front of you. So we went over this with the committee and had a very spirited discussion, I would say, about a couple of things. But basically, we came up with this document where we want people to feel like they can rate the answer. So do you see how I've got the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 on there? So theoretically, you would hear the answer from the first question, and then you would give it a score. And so you might make a couple notes, and then you're going to put your score in there. And then at the end of the interview, you could add up your scores, and it should match your feeling. If you like a certain candidate, then that should be the higher score than something that you didn't like. Gives you a little bit of a rubric to kind of go by. And so, and then the questions we came up with, they're pretty standard questions, I would say. So I will give you the thought that in the second round, if we do a second round, we will do different questions, and they will be more from you want to know now. now that you've met the candidates and you've kind of done this a little bit of a typical interview, now what do you want to know more? And so that's how the second round goes. So we get more into depth, if that makes sense. So I don't think these questions are too surprising, but if there's any concerns, I would take note and try to make those changes. Anything that anyone wants to note? So then what we'll do is we would copy these off for our interviews. Now, are we thinking of holding the interviews here? This is where we would do it. And so it'd be kind of almost like this, right? And so what we would do maybe if Kelly was sitting here, or if Rachel, if you're usually sitting here, whoever the board president usually would open and say, thank you for coming, you know, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in this position. So that's kind of an opener. And then we kind of go in order around the room. So I can do that, and I put a board member name on here, but I didn't put the order. So do you want to, is this the way you guys always sit? So who usually sits here?
I do.
Rachel?
Yeah.
So and Kelly would probably be the board president opening up. And Sean, where do you sit? Okay, Monday, next Monday? And so anybody else that thinks they might not be here?
I know I won't be in person. I might be able to.
Okay. So we could obviously adjust, you know, but what I would usually do is then I'd put Rachel, your name would be first, and then maybe, you know, Heather would be second, and so on. And then if Sean wasn't here, then we just skip, or someone else just is designated to read your questions if you weren't here. So I'm going to just put this order down, and I'll send this to Robin, and then Robin would make, or Haley would make the copies. And so Megan, and then Mike. And then we just do a round robin thing. So what happens is the candidate gets comfortable with the order, and so we're not, you know, popcorning them all over the place so they don't know where to look. And we want, when you're asking the question, we want you to hold eye contact with the candidate so that they feel comfortable, and then they will hold eye contact around as well. But the first person asking usually holds that eye contact at first, as opposed to just looking right down and taking notes, if that makes sense. That's just a little comfort thing. So then each interview would be about an hour, you know, a little bit less, and then they'd have a chance to do a closer at the end. We don't usually ask them to ask questions in the first round, so that would be usually more of a second round thing. But you do give them a chance to do a closer, which is, you know, why they're the best fit for this position or something like that. So I think I wrote down, you know, that ends our formal questioning. We appreciate you being here. Please take a couple moments to briefly make some closing remarks about your candidacy. So it's just a way to close the time. Then we would take a break for a few minutes, not very long, and then we'd have the next candidate coming in. And so, of course, it's all public. Any questions about how that would work? We would be here, and then the candidate would be here, but then people would be streaming in and watching, right? That's the way you've been doing it. Questions? Does this sound, it sounds normal to everybody? Yeah. Mike's been through it before. It's normal. Nothing's normal these days, but this is normal. This is normal. All right. Now, I would say if, you know, people felt comfortable, we could have the candidate not wear a mask. But I don't know, it's up to the board how you want to do it. And so I can tell the candidates what the protocol will be. So what do you guys want to do with that?
Yeah, I agree.
If they feel comfortable?
I think walking in, walking out, they should wear the mask.
Yep.
Once they're seated, we're all in a sitting position and social distancing is established. If they feel more comfortable, I think that'll be appropriate.
Okay. So that's the way I'll kind of lay it out for them. So the next thing we need to do is talk about the candidates. So you guys have in front of you a listing of the candidates. And so, so generally what I would do on this is ask you to give me your top picks of people that you would like to see, that you're interested in seeing. So I need to first say that number 75 is no longer a candidate, so that one can be crossed off. We're going to talk about these by number. And so, so I've got the top listing there. Those are the top ones, and then there's the other ones. Another one I would say 99 just took a position. And so I would say that person is really not a candidate because they just took another job.
I liked his resume.
So usually how I do this is I'll just ask you if you've got your top 3 or 4 or 5. If you know, I would say no more than 6 maybe. But if you have a, you know, I'm not going to really worry about whatever you've got. If you think you want to see them, and then we kind of see what everyone wants to do, and then we kind of come together with it. So does anybody want to start off with the ones they want to see? Mike?
I've got 5 that I kind of identified here. 23, 50,
Yep.
52, 64,
Yep,
91,
got it.
and it was 12. And that was after reviewing everybody's application, looking closely there. There are a few things on some of the candidates I liked better than others and some that stood out. And those were the 5 that initially I had penciled in there.
All right, very good. Megan, are you ready with yours?
I just had the 3 originally.
All right,
45, 52, 64.
45, 52, 64. Got it. Anyone else want to volunteer? Sean?
Yes, sir. So I have 3, 64, 91, and 12.
64, 91, and 12. Got it. Anyone else?
Okay.
Rachel?
Yes, I can go. I had 23, 52, 59, and 64.
Got it. Anyone else? David?
Give me a minute.
52, 64, and 12. Okay. Heather?
Okay, I had my own little abbreviation thing based on the original list, so I'm still trying
So
to
you're
figure
going
out
back and
who's
forth. That's
who.
okay.
Yeah, I think
We're- We're doing good.
you said take it down to our top 3.
Well, you know, it's whatever for you. If you're interested in seeing whoever you're interested in seeing, I would say, you know, at least you could do 6 or so if you wanted to.
Okay, well, let's see. I have 31, 7, 64, 91, and 82.
Okay. All right, so just adding them up, we have 52 has 4. See, 23 has 2. 45 has 1. Those were the top 3 there. 31 has 1. 7 has 1. 59 has 1. 64 had 6. 91 has 3. And then we had 1 for 82 and 12 had 3. So the next question would be, do we want to eliminate anyone? You know, like, do we want to eliminate some of the ones that just got 1 vote, for example? And so then people might put their votes towards something else. Do you want to just do a revote based on what everyone else has said? Go ahead, Megan.
I have some knowledge of a dismissal of one of these people and the things surrounding that dismissal.
Yes.
So I'm trying to figure out if I am able to just state that person.
Well, which candidate are you talking about? 91?
And that was one of my questions. And I have it written down, and I know there was an issue, but I don't know exactly what it was, and that's why I threw the name out there, but I don't know
Yeah.
what the issue was.
Yeah.
Say, yeah.
If you can say something that's generic enough that they can't tell who we're discussing.
I don't know if I can, so I'm gonna just.
Is it something we'd rather not have in the district right now?
I think so.
Yeah.
That's fair.
No, there's
That's-
some, there's some baggage there.
And that's what I wasn't sure if this was just to discuss some of these candidates, and I know it's tough to say much about them, but, I mean, I threw 5 out there anyway, so I have no problem pulling mine back on that one if there's gonna be an issue, if somebody knows of something.
I know this candidate too, and, you know, so I mean, I know there's some baggage there. I'm not saying that they would be the top choice, worthy of looking at, that's all. I mean, I can tell you a little bit about some of these candidates, if you wanted to go through, like, you know, so 45 is the superintendent, and has been in a few searches, ready to move to the next level. The district size, I don't know, maybe probably less than 2,000 or so. Probably less than that, closer to 1,000 student district. 23, assistant superintendent, has an interesting background. I've talked to all of these top candidates, all of the what I would consider the top 10, so to speak. So this person has been a principal, and has been like a curriculum director, and now is assistant superintendent in a district about the size of what, 2,000 or so maybe. I think pretty good track record, been in a couple of good districts, had a life change kind of midway through his career, where was going through a divorce, decided to get out of education for a couple years, then got back in. So you can see that if you look at the resume. I thought the explanation was good because it's a little unusual. Why do you get out of education? You know, but I think that the explanation was good. 52, assistant superintendent in a bigger district. I think very solid candidate, good track record, has been a principal for a number of years. Also, I think well thought of by the people that work with her. Number 31 is a principal, fairly new principal. I think a good candidate, but not necessarily maybe as much experience as some of the other ones. Number 7 was a principal in public schools, and then switched to like what I would consider to be like a charter group, and now is the superintendent of a kind of a bigger operation, but actually was principal in a couple of pretty nice districts and got some really good experience. I spoke to her on the phone. I think she was pretty solid, you know, at least somebody that I thought could be looked at. Number 59, another principal in a bigger district, well thought of, has just interviewed for superintendency in another bigger district than here. Also well thought of, has a pretty good reputation. Number 64, principal, good reputation, well thought of, in a district similar size. 91, former principal, so was recently let go and has not landed yet. But long-serving principal and well thought of, at least most of the time. A couple of these other ones towards the bottom, 82 got a couple votes. So I'm not too impressed with the 82, I will just say. I don't know if anybody else knows them, but I have checked into this person, and I don't think that that would be something that we're going to want to do. And then number 12. I talked to number 12 on the phone. I think good candidate, reasonable background, and I think has some skills. Not maybe as much experience as some of the other candidates. So that's my 2 cents on everybody. Any questions on any of them?
So we have 5 candidates that have more than 1 vote, is that correct? 23, 52, 64, 91, and 12?
Yep.
And then we're kind of questioning on maybe the 1.
Yeah, 91 I would pull if there's.
Yeah,
something.
I don't think we need that right now. I don't even know if it's... So we've got 4 that have more than 1.
Yeah. And then the only other question I would have is if you want to see more than 4, like a couple of these that got 1, would someone be interested in changing their vote on that? And, so sometimes what we'll do at this point is do a revote. We'll just ask people, hey, give me your top 4, top 5, whatever you think. We can decide how many we want to see. So you can decide that too. You could say, hey, I would say no more than 6, but I would also usually say no lower than 4. So that's another thing that we could decide and say, hey, we want to see 6, so let's try to get 6, or we don't think that these other 2 are going to make it, so let's just do the 4. So there's different ways to go if you think about it.
Can you tell us anything about 78? And that he wasn't mentioned, or that.
Yes,
candidate wasn't mentioned.
been a superintendent in 3 districts, but he's been let go in all 3, So he's, I think he's got some good experiences, and I don't know exactly what the reason is, but I don't feel like I can say that, hey, I think he's really ready.
Thank you.
If we did 6, we're obviously looking at 3 one day, 3 the next day. If we did 4, would you be looking at 2 and 2 or 1 day of all 4?
I think you'd probably be looking at 2 and 2, but I'm open, depending on everyone's schedules. If doing 4 means if you start at 5:30 or even 5, you could be done by 9 or so. I usually go with an hour and maybe 5 minutes in between. So, but we were starting at 6:30 was what we had said. So I might do 2 each night, but I mean, it's really up to the board because I'm open to do whatever you guys think you'd want to do. If we started at 5, you could do 5, 6, 7, and 8. The last one's like 8:15 to 9:15 type thing. You could do it in one night with 4.
So I know that you said if we wanted to change to someone who maybe got 1 vote, I don't know if this would get us to 5, which might be a little bit better number. I would like to support 31 for an interview, perhaps.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone else wanted to change, so we would get a number of 5.
Well, we got to pick more than 3, so if you wanted to just add that
Yeah.
on to yours.
Yeah, I might add that instead and drop a different one. So
Well, why don't we do a revote and have you vote for at least 4? If we could do a revote and have you vote for your top 4, let's see how it shakes out. How does that sound? And then if we have, if we're settling in on 4, then we could do that. Or if we've got somebody that's got a couple, then we could look at 5 or 6. So just pick your top 4.
Let's go around. All right, I'll go, I think it was 23, 52, 64, and 12.
Okay. Megan?
After hearing you, actually, that was my also top 4, so same
Same ones?
Mine are the same as well.
Mine are the
David?
same as
Okay.
well.
Well, this is just gonna end up with,
Sean?
Same as well.
All right.
23, 52, 64, and 12.
Heather, any changes?
Oh, 12 down there. Oh, yeah, we can do that. I like that. Oh, hold on one sec, let me. I still like 31 now.
Okay.
I
I'll
like
give you,
that.
I'll give you 31.
Yeah, give me 31.
Yeah, I'm okay with the 4 that have been mostly cited, and I would also like the addition of 31.
If we're gonna do 2 days, I don't think, I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
have
think
no
so.
issue with that
Yeah,
whatsoever.
I think so.
So, what do you think about 31? Other people? Could that be a?
I think
I'm fine with it.
we've got
Is that all
a
right?
third
Now-
of the third of the board members here that would like to hear from that candidate. I think we should.
The job title, is that the same job title that was in his or her packet?
Yeah. I think so.
Okay.
And it's just 1 year at that.
Okay.
So that would give us 23, 52, 31, 64, and 12. And then if we did lose one, let's say, I mean, sometimes you do an alternate. In this case, the 5th one is kind of an alternate in a way. So you'd still have 4 if you lost one. Does that sound okay? So I would do 3 the first night then, and then 2 the second night. And so we're doing these the 21st and 22nd, right? Next week,
Yes.
Monday, Tuesday. And now, Sean, you said you might not be able to be here, but you think you could participate virtually or at
I'm
least
gonna
listen
try.
in? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna try. I've gotta go to California for work both Monday and Tuesday.
Oh, both. So, okay, so it'd be great if you could do both nights and then boil down. If you can't do one, you might have to just trust the rest of your board members to
Yeah, which
to
is
do.
fine as well.
I know,
All the confidence.
but that'd be great if you could do it virtually. Actually, I've done several of them where somebody's been virtual and it's worked out great. Mike?
What time are
Are
those?
we recording this, so if he can't participate at the time, he can read and watch the interviews and be just as informed as everybody else? Or is this not on the website, or how do we do it? Are we able to tape this in case
You-
we need it? Okay, I get a yes. So you'd be able to watch it one way or another, just wouldn't be able to ask questions then, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks.
Okay, so I think three the first night and 2 the second night, and then the second night is when we boil down. And so, is there any particular order? Just want me to do them random on the nights? Either way, nobody cares.
What time are the interviews starting on those nights?
So I think we do 6:30, and then 7:35, and then 8:40 on the first night, and then the second night would be 6:30 and 7:35.
And when you say boil down on that second night, what is the process from that Tuesday to the next meeting or next week? Or
So-
how do we see that?
So boiling down, usually we take a break, see if we've gotten any feedback from anybody, because we're gonna have a like a Google Doc or something that people can email us feedback. So I'm gonna get that set up so that as they stream this and they watch it at home, they can give us comments, and then you guys will be able to read those. So you'll have a chance to read those comments and then look over your own notes, and then we will start boiling down. And so basically what I like to do on boil down is like, all right, so let's talk about each candidate. So briefly talk about each candidate. Obviously at that point we're doing it by name, no more numbers because everybody's been in the room. And but we don't mention as much concerns as we do what we liked about them. So you guys talk to each other a little bit. What do we like? And then we kind of say, okay, so give me your top 3, give me your top 2. What do you think? Now, at that point, we can actually go all the way from 3. 3 is the minimum. So if we're interviewing 5, we have to get down to at least 3. You can't do 4. So that's not allowed. But if you wanted to see 3 on the second round, you could. Or if you want to see 2, you could. Or if you really got down to like, this is the one we think we want to pursue, then you could do that as well. Now that has happened occasionally, not as common, depending on the situation, if that makes sense. So it just depends on what the board members are feeling after the first round of interviews. So I try to bring that out, let people talk about it, ask for concerns. So, let's hear what this is, let's hear what that is, and then we go into it a little bit. So it's a little bit of an art, but we do have the rubric on the questions. Like, for example, if you do this, the 5, 3, 2, 1 thing, you'll have some guts to your thought. Like, this is who I thought was number 1 or number 2. Now, I don't usually ask you to rank them after the first round. I usually ask you to give me the ones you want to see again. Who do you want to see again? And so a lot of times people will just say 2 that they want to see again, which is fine, but you'll have somebody with different 2s, and so then that's how you end up with a third one, because there's a lot of people want to see these 2, and then these other people want to see these 2, and then so you end up with 3. But I don't usually have you rank them unless everybody is picking just, the same 2. Then I might say, could I see a ranking? I might say that.
And we can give you a ranking?
Yeah, we may or may not do that in terms of voting or anything if we're going to bring back 2. But sometimes I like to know how is this shaking out before I bring back just 2. But it's a little bit of a feel of how it's going. I mean, usually when you're bringing back 2, you're bringing back 2, and that's what you're doing, So unless somebody doesn't want to bring back 2, we would usually do that. Does that make sense?
Do we have a date scheduled for that second round?
We
yet?
do.
Which was when?
29th,
Oh, yeah.
Are you back in town?
week from Tuesday. Week from the boil down.
Everybody's here.
And then on that second round, do we choose publicly who we're going with, or do we take another week and do another meeting?
No, usually you try to boil down again after that meeting. So between the 2 meetings, what we might do, first of all, I'm going to ask you, hey, what do you want to know about these 2 candidates? What are some questions you have, Rachel, about, and you can do them individual. So if you have 2 candidates that we decide to bring forward, and they're very different. Let's say you've got a business manager on one and a curriculum person on another. So maybe the questions might be different in the second round for the 2 candidates. Like, how are you going to handle curriculum if you're a business manager? How are you going to do the business, that type of thing. So you can do different questions in the second round, and then also we may do some reference checking between the 2 Tuesdays. So we're prepared that we know a little bit more about these candidates. We've got some detailed work. So we'll decide that next Tuesday. We'll decide how we're going to proceed for that following. But normally I would say the 29th, you've got the last 2 interviews, and then you try to boil down and decide who you think you want to offer it to. And if you're not ready, then we do another meeting, of course. But if you're ready, then we call and we make the offer, but it's contingent upon agreement on a contract. So there's 2 points. Remember, I told you this probably in the workshop in July. You have a vote to make an offer. That's the board. And then you have a vote to approve the contract, which is usually another meeting later.
When we're discussing, are we allowed to go into a closed session, or is it all open?
It's all open.
This is hard on me as a teacher, if I were to ever move to another district, if I were to ever talk to them. It's very hard.
Where are you a teacher? Where are you a teacher?
Right now, Huron High School.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Yeah, so it's open. So that's why I like to talk about positives, what you like, but then, of course, when we get down to the end, there may be some things that we need to discuss, yeah.
So the whole time we're having discussion, it's always gonna be the candidate number. When we finish the 2 interviews, are we acknowledging just the number that we're gonna make the offer, or do we actually put a name out at that point?
The whole time, after tonight, the whole time, it will be names.
Okay.
Tonight's the only night where
I thought
we're,
it'd be kinda awkward giving them a number and not calling them by a name, you know, it just seemed kinda strange. People might recognize them too, you know?
no. So it's just tonight, that's the numbers, because we're keeping it confidential of who didn't get an interview. So what I'll do tonight and tomorrow morning is I will contact these candidates and get the interview schedule set up. And then once that's done, then we publish that with the district. So I'll email some people, like you're looking at Robin's email. So I would email like Kelly and Robin and Sean or whatever, and then that's going to get published on the website, and then everyone will know who we're interviewing and the schedule. And that's when it's public. So it'll probably be tomorrow afternoon. That make sense? Questions? Nothing? Megan?
All good here.
I'm good.
All right. Well, I think I've got what I need. I'll make these calls tonight and get things set up. Maybe I'll draw times and dates, you know, to keep it fair. Sometimes you pick the furthest one that's away and call them first because they have to come the furthest. But we'll just see. I think most of these are fairly local. So any other questions for me?
Great. No?
All right. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Green, very much.
Very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you.
So we need a motion to adjourn the workshop.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mrs. Drake,
Support.
support by Mrs. Helton. We doing a roll call today or no? Did we do roll call
Yeah,
last?
we
Did
did.
we?
Yeah.
It's not 100%, but we can do roll call.
Okay,
That's
roll-
easier.
Roll call vote, Mr. French.
Okay, Mrs. Drake.
Yes.
Mr. French is a yay. Mr. Gearhart?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Helton?
Yes.
Ms. Howie is absent, and Mrs. Lear.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thanks, Mr. French. So we're going to take a 10-minute break here before we start our regular meeting. We need to go grab Ms. O'Connor and Mr. Menser to start that meeting. So we'll reconvene at 6:21.
Thanks so much. Nice to see you.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to open the September 14th, 2020 regular meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll move on to 2.02, roll call, Mr. French.
Yes, Vice President Gearhart, Mrs. Drake.
Present.
Mr. French is present, Mr. Gearhart.
Here.
Mr. Hawkins.
Here.
Mrs. Helton. Here. Howie is absent, Mrs. Lear.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. French. We'll move down to 2.03. This is our recognition of visitors. We do appreciate everyone that joins us for our meetings. We have two opportunities for public comment. One is at 3.01, and that's about agenda items only. We also have another opportunity under 9.01, which is about other items that are outside of the agenda. So we'll move down to 3.01. This is the first opportunity for public comment. You're going to see some of the board members putting their headphones in so they can hear you. Does anyone have any public comment? This is about agenda items only. Please keep your comment to 3 minutes. State your name and address for the record. Okay.
Oh, here's the phone. Let's see if we can do this now. Gotta go to speaker. Where is speaker? Hold on.
We did get a call. We're trying to answer it here right now. Hold on 1 second.
Where's speaker? Not yet. I think we might have paused the call. Who's this? They're not there anymore. Maybe they'll call back.
Oh, we
No, they're
lost
on
you.
hold.
If
Hold
you can
on.
call
They're
back,
on
we're
hold.
sorry.
Hello? Hold on, please. Is it on speaker? I lost the call, sorry. Every-
Could-
don't pick up the handset, just hit the
Okay, but the button is the microphone down here in the corner, right?
No.
Oh, the speaker's above it. Okay.
Whoever just called in, could you please call us back?
Yeah, call us back. Technical difficulties.
We'll give them a couple minutes.
I think my audio is still not connected.
Hopefully they're not leaving a message.
I don't think it went to that. Something about your car warranty? Yeah, they're not calling back. I don't know what to do about it.
Okay, if you do call in, we'll pick up and take your comment. We'll move down to 3.02. Any board comments this evening? Seeing none, we'll move to the general consent agenda. Is there anything from the general consent agenda anyone would like to pull and discuss?
I'd make a motion to approve general consent agenda 4.1, 4.02, and 4.03 as written.
Moved by Mr. Hawkins,
Support.
support by Mrs. Helton. Any further discussion on this item? Unanimously so ordered. We'll take a roll call vote. Mr. French?
All right, Mrs. Drake.
Yes.
Mr. French is a yay. Mr. Gearhart.
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Helton?
Yes.
Mrs. Howie is still absent. And Mrs. Lear.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. French. We'll move down to 5.01, ratification of TEA contract agreement. Mr. Renser.
It is my privilege to announce that the agreement between the Trenton Public School Board of Education and the Trenton Education Association as presented be ratified, that the agreement remain in effect through August 14th, 2022, and that the President and Vice President of the Board of Education and the Superintendent be authorized to sign this contract on behalf of the Board.
So we're looking for a motion that the agreement between the Trenton Public School Board of Education and the Trenton Education Association as presented be ratified, basically what Mr. Menser just said.
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Mrs. Drake, support by Mrs. Lear. Any further discussion on this item?
Just very grateful for all the hard work that you put in, and thank you. And pleased
On
with the
both
union's
sides.
work as well, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you very much.
Do a
It
roll
was,
call.
the times for putting this together, I'm sure was challenging, more challenging than normal, so very much appreciated. We'll do a roll call vote, Mr. French.
Mrs. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. French is a yea. Mr. Gerhart?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Helton?
Yes.
Mrs. Howie is absent. Mrs. Lear?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. French. We'll move down to 5.02, Return to Learn Update. Ms. O'Connor, Mr. Menser.
Thank you, Mr. Gerhart. Tonight we are here to bring you our Return to Learn update. The state of Michigan requires that we present our extended learning plan, and we put that on our website as we continue to monitor our plan of instruction during these times with COVID. The state does require that we monitor our monthly attendance, we look at goals, and we look at our plan of action. We brought you the Safe Start September back in August, on August 10th, and we have that in place, and we've only had that going for 5 days now. So I know we have a lot of people that are very anxious to know what our next steps are and what we plan to do, but we still have some time that we need to evaluate how the face-to-face is going. We need to work with our teacher association, the president, and representative council. Our goal, definitely, as we continue to monitor the safety protocols, is to have more face-to-face time for elementary and begin looking at options for face-to-face for middle school and high school. And so we will continue to bring this back to you. Our goal is also on September 28th. We have to look at what were our attendance rates for the month of September. We will have some of our instructional testing done. The state requires that our reading is tested in the first 30 days for K3, and we have to test math and reading for K8 for all students. So that will be in the first 9 weeks of school. So we are looking at plans on how do we test our students in those grades. We have the month of October that high school testing is required still by the state of Michigan, and that has to be done in person. So we begin to look at those plans this week. We meet with our administrative team on Wednesday, and we're looking forward to meeting with our Teachers Association as well this week. So the plan is continuing to evolve. We don't have any set exact plans until we make some recommendations back to you. We do know that we plan to continue this plan through October the 2nd. So we originally said Safe Start September, but October 1st and 2nd are the end of that week. And so we're looking to enroll out some face-to-face time for middle school and high school, hopefully on October 5th, and increase our time at the elementary as well. So that's our plan. It's laid out in this public document that we have to send to RISA to be approved and also post on the website. Anything
Great.
you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would add that our elementary schools have started successfully with their face-to-face, the hybrid, and I've been there numerous times since the beginning of the school year last Tuesday. And I'm happy to report the kids are happy, parents are happy, things are working really well there. As Ms. O'Connor pointed out, there are things that we need to work on still. We wish that everything would be proactive. It's not always easy to be proactive in this situation. People are learning as we go along about what virtual means, what remote means, and what the hybrid model looks like. So as we move forward, as Ms. O'Connor pointed out, we're going to gather information, we're going to make the best decisions we can make along the way. It's ever evolving, just as we stated back in the summer, and we'll adjust as we go. We're doing the best that we can, and everyone's putting their heart and soul into what we're doing. So.
I think I would just add, technology-wise, everyone that is on remote and virtual that needed a device was able to get a device. We are still waiting on 800 Chromebooks to come in. It does look like the end of October for those. And that's a hopeful timeline. I'm sure you've heard out there. But we still have Chromebooks that are available that we plan to get out first to our students on intervention and that need special education support. And then we'll roll out additional Chromebooks from there. But we also have to get our testing done. And so we need Chromebooks for that. So we're trying to find a balance between all of those pieces and making sure that we're able to do all the things that were required. And as difficult as it is, knowing that it's only been 5 days and this plan was for 14 days to get started, and then that additional week, we hope to increase that time as we watch our protocols and see how things are going with the face-to-face. We do have many families that did kind of change their mind in terms of that virtual, remote, and face-to-face, as Mr. Menser stated. So some of those numbers are still falling out, and we're making adjustments as soon and as possible, as quickly as possible along the way.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Any questions?
Ju-
Mr. Hawkins?
Just to be clear, so what we approved last time was August 1st, August 2nd to try and get back face-to-face. But before that time, we're going to try and roll out the middle school and the high school in some type of slow start.
Yes.
That's, okay.
We're hoping
All right.
to have some conversations this week and see what that cohorting could look like and how that face-to-face could work at middle and high school level. We had bigger challenges with those levels to start, and we know the state highly recommended that K-5 was back face-to-face as soon as possible.
And I would just add one thing, and that is to your question too, is that the advantage of the safe start or the slow start was also being able to see what other districts are doing. And that's been extremely helpful, and to see what they're doing, how they're adjusting, how they're modifying things. And we can actually, see what works and then hopefully replicate that. That's a great advantage of what we're doing. So.
Sure. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Ms. Helton?
So one of the complaints I know that you saw and that we received was that kids are getting bounced out of their classrooms virtually, when they're there. And I asked this is just anecdotal, but my children said they were not experiencing that. Do you have
Friday there was a global Schoology issue,
Okay.
and then Google had the same thing the day before. So I do think it's the use of some of those platforms, and it has not been Trenton technology. It's really just been some of that use. I think globally those platforms, Schoology, I can't remember the number they said, but just the increase they have, the volume that they've had over the summer of people signing on to their platform and trying to manage all of that. So we know there's some little glitches along the way. We know some kids have had a hard time getting signed up, but we really have been trying to troubleshoot with them. And we've offered for people to come in to kind of help them sign in with their device and get some support that way if they need it.
All right, thank you.
And just the building principals too, following up with them. I would urge our community to continue that dialogue with the principals. When that happens, they're quick to respond, at least in my experience they are. And the elementary principals reported very little of that, as the middle school principal didn't either, and Mr. Dyroff, the high school principal, didn't. So, when we know of things, we will absolutely do our best to resolve them. But that's the biggest thing, I think, in all of this, is continuing our communication. It's always that old adage, we can't fix what we don't know is broke. So, when we do hear stuff, we follow through and we make sure that we have an answer.
There have been a few frustrated people when their passwords don't log on or some of those things, and we feel for them. So we know that can be a challenge, and we've kind of experienced that running some board meetings as we got started with the Zoom stuff. So we are trying to help them as quickly as possible to get that resolved.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion that the Return to Learn update be received and placed on file.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Helton. I didn't. Support by Mr. Hawkins. Roll call vote, Mr. Frank, please.
Mrs. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. French is a yay. Mr. Gearhart?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Helton?
Yes.
Mrs. Howie is absent, and Mrs. Lear.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. French. We'll move on to 5.03, update on athletics. Mr. Trush.
Am I good to stand here?
Can they see you?
Sure.
All right. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, members of the board. Appreciate your time tonight. I'm here to give a brief update on the return to sports. As you know, there's been a lot of activity the last couple weeks. As recently as September 3rd, a decision was made to reopen many of the sports, specifically football, after that had been postponed for the spring season. I do have in my presentation some quick links or some guidance. Haley, if you will go ahead and just click on that first one, and this is for your ease if you like later on. But basically referencing the decisions that have been made over the last couple weeks in the return to sports and athletic competition. You can go back now, Haley, thank you. And other plays that we have. As recently as last Thursday, we've actually had 2 executive orders, 176, which was the organized sports, and then Executive Order 180, which was in regards to all athletes wearing face masks. Once the Executive Order of 176 was put in place on September 3rd, it was basically required by the governor's office that all sports would be wearing face masks. That was actually taken back on Executive Order 180. For those of you that are familiar, cross country and tennis and golf have been playing since the season began on August 10th. Those sports had not been required to wear masks. With the implementation of Executive Order 176 last week, they had then said that those sports would have to wear masks and all sports would have to wear masks. That has since been rescinded with Executive Order 180, which we have up there. What I can say is that Trenton Public Schools is following all executive orders, both 2020-176 and 2020-180, in conjunction with MHSA guidance. And in when in conflict, executive orders shall follow until such time as executive clarification is received. Now, there are some guidelines here that I've listed below. Haley, will you go ahead and just click on cross country for reference? The MHSA has put out references for us that we're able to use at mhsa.com. And I did create some quick links. Basically, it's going to point out return to competition, where the competitions are, different points of view that we're having for those respective sports. So those are there for your use if you need those as well. You can go ahead and go back, Haley. Thank you. So if you go to the next page, I talk about a couple key points. Social distancing is what we're maintaining. Students must maintain 6 feet of distance from one another to the extent compatible with organized sport. Face masks, I did have that tagged in the very beginning. It's the same thing that we had there. The athletes in the sports that must wear face masks at all time during practice and competition, this is when they're checking in. That would include cheer, football, soccer, and volleyball. And that's in addition to any other activity or instance in which we have 6 feet of social distancing is not possible. Face masks or coverings must be worn by all coaches, managers, trainers, management, school administrators, event workers, and media. And face masks must be worn by all spectators. If we go to the next page, we're talking about our live audience. I did tag in there the Downriver League spectator policy. Haley, if you want to bring that up for me real quick. And this is a policy that we as the league, and if you scroll down, this is what I posted on TrentonAthletics.com last week. You can scroll down just a little bit. And basically, just each participant, athlete, will be allowed 2 spectators for each indoor or outdoor event as venue allows. Spectators must be 18 years old or accompanied by an adult. 2 spectators per participant. Face masks must be worn. Social distancing must be followed. In the occurrence that more than one event is taking place at the same venue, admission is only for contest participant athlete is playing. No re-entry once you exit the venue. Student sections are not allowed. There are not concessions available at any indoor or outdoor event. And due to MHSA order, pom dance, marching band, and other related performance groups are not allowed to participate in football games. Sideline cheer is allowed as a participant. And all MHSA and state executive orders and protocols will be followed, including face covering, social distancing, and people not from the, with people from the same household. So that's what we have posted. That's what we'll be following. Haley, if you go ahead and go back. Indoor organized sports is limited to the guests of the athletes, which each athlete is designating up to 2 guests. Outdoor organized sports, and this is it reads a little weird, but it's limited to the guests of the athletes, with each athlete designating up to 2 guests, or limited to total to 100 people or fewer, including all participants. Obviously, with the or there, we're going to go with the first, which is what the league adopted. Now, if you scroll down to tickets, or if you look down, the day before each contest, each coach for every sport is going to get 2 tickets per athlete and 2 tickets per coach. The student athlete may designate via ticket up to 2 guests. Those guests must present the ticket for entrance. We are doing this in conjunction with everyone in the league. So if we have, say we go to Allen Park, we're going to Allen Park this Thursday and this Friday for football, our athletes will all be given tickets. They give to their parents, or a parent can bring a sibling. They'll have a list at the front door. Once we get to Allen Park, 2 tickets per person. They'll come on in. They're certainly welcome to come in. We are asking that all spectators wear masks at all time, and they can go ahead, enjoy the festivities, and then leave after the game. There is no admission for any Downriver League contests for the fall. As a reminder, postseason or tournament play that we get to, if it's MHSA, could have admission. But that's one thing that the league went ahead and agreed on. Next, I'd like to talk about locker rooms. Practices, locker rooms basically are only utilized by no more than 10 people at a time, and they're monitored by the coaches and the security personnel. Locker rooms will not be used for changing. So with the exception of swim, our athletes are coming to events ready for competition. Swim, they do need that privacy to change, but locker rooms will only be used for changing for swim, and they won't be used for meeting as well. We'll have designated areas either out at the football field, inside the gym if we've got volleyball going on, or other areas of the complex for meetings, as they will not be able to meet in locker rooms. We are allowing athletes, coaches, officials, staff to use the restrooms inside the locker rooms as well. During contests, visiting teams will not be allowed access to the locker room. Okay, so they'll have to meet either outside in a corner of the gym, maybe for volleyball. Football teams have already decided that they're going to stay outside at halftime prior to the game, and we're going to be dropping our students off much closer to event starting times than we have previously. Transportation, we just used it today with our soccer game that we had at Edsel Ford, but we're using a shuttle system when applicable, where we are transferring each team at a time. So for example, freshman team will go first, the bus will drop off the freshman team, the bus will come back, pick up the JV team. It'll then transport the JV team, it'll pick up the freshman team, come back, and then it will go take the varsity team and then take back the JV. So we're really trying to keep that distancing from the teams. Very rarely are you going to see any teams in the same gym or at the same complex at the same time. For example, with soccer today, the varsity team probably should have arrived at the soccer game with a little bit left in that JV game, to where the JV team could have got on transportation on the bus, went home, the bus went back and picked them up. The same will happen with volleyball. Okay, so we're trying to do our best to prevent having multiple athletes on site. Restrooms, especially outside, we have portable restrooms in place at the following locations: the THS tennis courts, the THS practice football field, the THS practice soccer field, which is at Anderson, and the THS stadium, where we're hopeful to have future soccer and football games very soon. As far as live streaming, I've had many questions about live streaming events. We are working with our media classes and IT to help us provide live stream events, and we hope to have more information on that soon. As far as facility cleaning, I've been working in conjunction with Mr. Crescent and Mr. Stanley as far as having adequate schedules. They have the ability to look at our practice schedules, our event schedules, and make sure that we are cleaning properly using proper protocols. I do have signage in place at our events that will be reminding our spectators of proper social distancing and the different PPEs or requirements that we have as you come in here. For example, at our volleyball game, we're going to have our chairs spread out for our athletes. We're going to separate the fan base. You're going to come in one door, you're going to exit another door. And all of these things we're trying to do in a manner to which it keeps a social distance, it keeps it safe, and we also are cleaning in between. Prior to an individual or groups of individuals entering the facility, hard surface with the facility should be wiped down. We'll be following that. Individuals should wash their hands for a minimum of 20 seconds with warm water and soap or hand sanitizer before touching any surfaces or participating in workouts. Hand sanitizer should be plentiful. We have plenty. We should be having that at every entrance. When you're welcomed with a smiling face at an event, we'll have it at scoring tables. It's very important that we have that visible and readily available to our spectators and staff. Appropriate clothing and shoes should be worn at all times to minimize sweat from transmitting onto surfaces. Students must be encouraged to shower and wash their workout clothing immediately upon returning home. These are the things that we're stressing with our staff and our athletes and our coaches. And then we are screening our coaches and students for all daily activities. So when they show up, if they're coming in, we're double checking if they have the symptoms, if their temperature check, everything that they have. And response and screenings to each question should be recorded and stored, which it is. And then any person with positive symptoms reported should not be allowed to participate, which we are following. And just some of the hygiene practices that we are reminding our coaches, athletes, and staff. We're encouraging everyone to wash your hands, the spectators as well. Wash your hands with soap and water. Use hand sanitizer, especially if they're touching frequently used items or surfaces. Sneeze or cough into a tissue or inside elbow. Avoid touching your face. Do not spit at all. Air ground equipment, hands, sunflower seeds, etc. We have all students are bringing their own water bottle. We do have our trainer out there readily available, but water bottles must not be shared. We do have hydration stations, water cows, water troughs. Those should not be utilized, and food should not be shared as well. All athletic equipment, balls included, should be cleaned intermittently during practices and contests, and that is something that the officials are double checking at events. There should be no shared athletic equipment, so towels, clothing, shoes, or sports-specific equipment, when possible, between students. Students should wear their own appropriate workout clothing. Do not share clothing. Individual clothing, towels should be washed and cleaned after every workout. All athletic equipment, including balls, should be cleaned after each use and prior to the next workout. And individual drills using the use of athletic equipment are permissible, but the equipment should be cleaned prior to use by the next individual. And lastly, physical contact such as handshakes, high fives, fist bumps, and hugs should not be allowed. So that's what I have just as far as a return to sports activity. Certainly open to any questions if anybody has any.
Any member of the board? Mr. Roth?
I've got a few. I noticed you used the double T and not the logo up there. Is it too soon? Or?
Yeah. Just
Too soon?
threw that out there.
Oh, yeah. No, I've got a question for you. Just personally, in my opinion, if we can play contact sports, we can be back in the classroom. I hope in the next week, back to that point, we can get there. We're doing this. They're having physical contact, doing all this stuff. I think we can do that inside and get back. Because we know we're going to get the knock. How can we play sports? How can we do this? And we can't be in school. So I know the administration's looking at that, and hopefully that happens soon. For James, a couple questions. I know one of our neighboring districts today signed on with the National Federation of High School Network. They're going to offer free streaming to all events, home events in the pool, in their stadiums, everything. Have we looked at that outside of?
Yeah, I think you're referring to Woodhaven and the pig slot contract that they have.
Well, I wouldn't say a name.
You
but
wouldn't
yes, I would
say a name?
Yeah.
Well, fair enough.
Okay.
I am familiar with it. I have been in contact with that company. I have looked at the infrastructure that we have. It is a possibility we might be able to do in the near future. I've also been in contact with Ms. Lopez about what we can do prior to getting that, and I'm confident that we'll be able to produce some sort of live streaming experience for our spectators.
And I guess on that, with only having 2 tickets, people are going to be left out. On top of, are we still collecting athletic fees, a full athletic fee for everybody for this year? Do we know that?
As of right now, we are collecting a fee. I have been in contact with Interim Superintendent Menser and Business Manager Mrs. Farrell as far as if there's any opportunities or options we can do. We identify that it has been somewhat of a shortened, abbreviated season for some sports, and it's obviously different times right now, so we have been entertaining the idea and looking and see what we can possibly offer if there is an alternative.
Either a reduced or even a version of a streaming for that. I mean, that would be beneficial as well. So.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Just one more.
Okay.
Just because you're up there and we don't hear much on a bond update on the soccer and football progress on where we're at with that. Do you have any idea?
Without giving a definitive date, I'm confident that we will host a home football game or games in addition to home soccer games this fall.
Okay, that was a concern, that everyone was obviously scheduled away
know.
for precautions, but there is a high probability that we could host some games here this year.
What I will say, prior to COVID and back when we started this and broke ground, September 1 was always the completion date. Our first game was supposed to be September 4th, which was our second game of the year against South Lyon. Contractors were down for 7.5 weeks. So if the completion date was September 1 plus 7.5, that puts us somewhere between kind of middle of October, third week of October. Certainly confident, even though they seem like they are behind, I feel like they're on schedule and maybe a little bit ahead of schedule, and we're confident that we're going to be able to utilize the field and the stadium for at least one or if not more games in the future, certainly for football and soccer.
I'm done, I promise.
Any other questions? I have one, Mr. Trush, the transportation and then not getting the ticket sales. Do you see that affecting us significantly in funding? Is there extra cost for the transportation setup now, or?
Well, I think as far as extra cost because the buses are staying longer, is that maybe what you're referring
the multiple
to?
trips, I know we
Well,
haven't done that before.
You know, possibly there's a little bit, but we're just kind of following what everybody's suggesting. There isn't really much to do with that. What we would typically have done is we'd have downtime, so a bus would drop a team. Both teams, like the JV and varsity, would stay together, and then that return bus would go. So yes, there is added cost for that.
Okay.
And that's also part of the reason where it is tough to maybe make that decision of lowering the activity fee, because we have so many different costs to offset. Obviously, the reduction of gates or the not having the opportunity to have gates is going to bring down our budget, but I think there's only so much we can do with the fact that it's limited to begin with. You know, we're going to be very limited with who's going to be at events. Just the idea of charging them, and we're trying to do, I think, what's right for everybody. We really want to get everybody back for sports. This was a league decision. I know all the superintendents and principals, everybody was involved, and we just thought it was best to not charge right now, especially when you're not going to have the experience. You're not going to have concessions. You really can't sell anything. It's just different right now. Basically allowing people to attend games and trying to get to certain sense of normalcy is what our goal was.
Understood.
I would just add, too, and the reason I think one of the biggest reasons to have Mr. Trush here tonight is just so that people understand that flipping a switch on and off has been extremely difficult for him and for our coaches, and it's not that easy. So I guess what I would say is that the evolving conclusions that have been drawn time and time again has made it very difficult. 1 minute football's canceled. The irony, though, is that there was constant dialogue along the way. If you're not connected to that world, every time they would close something, immediately it would come back out that it's going to open again. Or there were press conferences that people thought there were going to be announcements, and then they just restated what we already knew. So my hat's off to our coaches for their dedication and commitment, and my hat's off to Mr. Trush and Ms. Johnson as well at the middle school for their continuing effort to stay on top of things. It's not been easy for either of them, and the flip-flops that they've had to deal with have been handled extremely well. So,
Any other questions from anyone from the board?
I don't have a question, just a statement. I just want to thank Mr. Trush for the presentation. I think that the timing, the fact that you put this together as quickly as you did demonstrates that you've got your finger on the pulse of this, and I look forward to our students having the opportunity to participate in the fall sports as normal as we can make it for them. And for those parents that want to participate, I think it's great that we can offer that. And live streaming, I think that would be an awesome thing if we can provide that as well for the parents and the family members that would want to see the young athletes do what they do so well. So, but thank you for the presentation. It was very helpful.
Thank you, Mr. French.
If there's no further questions, we're looking for a motion that the update on athletic report be received and placed on file.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Mrs. Helton or Mrs.
Sorry.
Lear?
Not me.
Mrs. Helton?
I'll
Support.
support it, Ms. Drake.
Mrs. Drake? Roll call, Mr. French?
Mrs. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. French is a yea. Mr. Gearhart?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Helton?
Yes.
Oh, he's absent. And Mrs. Lear?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. French. We'll move on to 5.04. This is a discussion about the Hold Harmless Millage campaign strategy. I'm going to have Mr. Menser help me a little bit here, but essentially, as you guys know, back in June, We asked to have this proposal back on the ballot. It's very important to the district. It is not a new millage. It is a renewal of an existing millage, which is, I think, important for everyone to understand. But especially during these times, it's extremely important for our district to have this millage. And we're asking the community to please support it with a yes vote. Today, I did see an email from Mr. Menser about a publication that will go in the paper to give some people some information in the district and the community. I'm not quite sure as far as the discussion goes what we had done in the past or when we actually had this millage originally. But we can't use public funds to help us pass it. But I wanted to open up a discussion with you all about any other ideas in order to bring this to fruition. So I'll just open it up there, and then obviously, Mr. Menser, if you have anything you want to add to that, please do.
I would just start with the idea of breaking it down, and I know it sounds simple, but the idea, hold, harm, less, the idea is that this goes all the way back to 1994 with Proposal A, and the idea was that Proposal A changed the way schools were funded, and so the idea also is that those schools that in essence would have been harmed by Proposal A were able to levy a millage to maintain their funding, and that's where this comes from. So it's been a part of our history, so to speak, really, for the last, 26 years. So it is vital to our students and to our support for our students. However, as a school employee, I obviously can't endorse or promote it, but I can speak to the facts, and we definitely are reliant upon these funds for school services.
Is there any other? Go ahead, Ms. Hull.
So as I understand it, we can take out an ad informing people about what it does, and could we also send out a mailer? I don't know if that's ever been done in the past by our district.
We can use public funds for that, as long as we don't say vote yes and
Yeah,
support it.
correct.
We can give out a fact sheet or anything else
Yeah.
with money, just like the bond stuff. The only
Right.
problem is, right now, I mean, it's gonna be tough with people divided over being in school, not being in school, sports going, not going, construction going on. It's gonna look like a lot. Now, November gives us a chance where if something happened, we get to do it again, because I think it's next November that it expires, or at the end of the year. But I mean, I think we need to do it, but we have to be very smart on how we do this. And I don't know if today's the time to figure out what we're going to do, or we sit down with the next superintendent and devise a strategy with Gail here, because I think she knows a lot of the specifics on it as well.
Mr. Frank?
Just clear.
Oh, there she is. She's here. Okay.
So, in addition to that, the enhancement millage is going to be on the ballot at the same time as our hold harmless. That will also be a renewal, but I think it kind of changes the way that we may present it. So I think that the board needs to think about that, and how, like, do they want to, I want to back up a little bit. Wayne Risa, I found out in a meeting on last Thursday that they informed the districts that it's going to be up to each individual district to inform their voters about the enhancement millage. Wayne Risa is not really going to take on that project. So how do you want to do that? Because the enhancement millage is also very, very important to us. So do you want to do it together? Do you want to do it separate? They are going to be on the same ballot. Do you want to stress that they're both renewals? I just think that there's a lot of consideration there.
I would just, in that, Gail, I would just add that it is a challenge, and I think that it'll be unique for our community to differentiate between the two. However, I think the unifying element of both of those is that you're holding a tax charge, so to speak, that's consistent with what you've paid in the past, as well as the enhancement millage would just be a continuing millage as well. So the positive of it is you're not adding anything to the tax responsibility of our community. But I think it's well said that they it can be confusing if you're not sure of which is which and how they work. So, Hold Harmless has been around, as I said, for 26 years, and then the enhancement millage, as we know, is relatively newer, and it is countywide, and I think that promotion has to come from not only this group, but also the Downriver Superintendent's group, all schools, because we ultimately, all Wayne County benefits from the enhancement millage. So that is the difference between the two.
And I'm a little concerned about waiting too long to publicize because people are going to be voting absentee and we don't want to miss the window in which to inform them, I guess. So if we were going to do a mailer, I think we'd want to do it very soon.
Yeah, I think a fact sheet stating that at no additional cost to your current budget, you can support school districts would be a really good thing to put out there, because I think when people already have their budget made and they know that they're still supporting their schools, it's, very helpful to have that, because even stating everything, people still sometimes don't connect that. Saying it's a renewal doesn't mean you're paying more. It's,
Yeah, zero
I don't know
increase.
how many more times,
Yeah.
you would say it to make sure people understand that.
And maybe identify some of the things that we purchased through the enhancement or the Hold Harmless.
Mr. Price?
So I just want to clarify, the Hold Harmless, is that on all taxable property in Trenton, or is that restricted to just certain tax base? I'm glad Mrs. Farrell is on.
Yeah, we'll leave it to the expert. Gail, did you hear that question?
Yes, the hold harmless is on virtually everything. There's a couple minor exceptions, but virtually everything, yes.
Thank you, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm wondering if the 29th is our next regular,
28th.
the 28th?
Yeah, I thought. Right?
Would it be feasible to have, to put some type of draft together of a mailer that we could put out? Not to add to your plate.
No, I've actually, well, you saw what I had for the Hold Harmless.
Yeah.
And
I
I
thought it was
worded
a
that
good-
in such a way that it was neutral. But also, over the summer months when I had nothing to do, I played around with the enhancement millage as well. And Gail and I started to compile a little bit of a list of what we benefit from the enhancement millage. So I think that's important for people to know and understand, for sure. And, we don't know still what's going to happen with school funding. So the reality is that these funds become really essential to the well-being of the school district. So whatever, I would agree that we need to move quickly and put that out there in front as a priority. It keeps moving up the task list, so I think you're right, Ms. Helton. It's time to get that out there for those that are voting absentee.
Anyone else have any other comments?
Just another thought is that when we passed when the bond was successfully passed, I know that there was a bit of a Facebook campaign, a social media campaign to try to publicize it. I don't know if we could get, I don't know. That seems a little bit to compile a list of names of who would publicize that, but to put it out there in our community to our electorate virtually. That way you can do it multiple times. It would be free. Maybe that could be part of our strategy
Yeah,
as well.
I think that's a good
instead
idea.
of just one mailer.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Does that give you enough, Mr. Messer, for next steps? or-
The one thing I would see that we need to, as you look at the strategic plan goals back there, the school and community relations and that idea of having different levels of modalities to communicate with our community, this is one of those areas where I think we're going to be able to not only emphasize the needs for these respective millages, but also the fact that we have to determine and really define on a formal level what these modalities are going to be going forward. We shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel when you mention social media. So that would be something when you look at processes, we need to get moving on this, but particularly I think from a long-standing view, look at more of a standing arsenal, pardon the expression, but arsenal of modalities to reach people. So that we don't have to make flyers, or maybe flyers are a part of that effort versus, kind of a standalone. We're gonna do A, we're gonna do B. It'd be nice to be able to say we're gonna do A, B, C, D, and E. So.
I guess, it'd be free for us to add that information to our website.
Yeah,
right? The
absolutely.
app.
That goes without saying. Yeah.
Our
In fact, I
school
emailed
app,
today Ms. Koala
Yeah.
about that. Kujala, excuse me. about
Well, you have
doing
the,
that.
you have the emailing to all the
Yeah,
parents,
emails.
you have the website,
Mhm.
you know, there should be a structure to how we
A checklist, right?
dispense that information out to our community in a very effective way and know that we've hit whatever people, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Facebook, you know,
And a TikTok challenge.
and TikTok. Yeah, so,
We'll leave that to the board.
Right.
it just gets bigger and bigger now.
Yeah.
Anything else on this?
Just the first thing I think would be to check with the city when they're sending out the absentees as well, to make sure we,
Yeah, I think tomorrow.
Yeah.
I had heard that,
was it? Yeah, somebody said 6 weeks, which is usually like the 22nd or 23rd, but if they're out tomorrow, we're probably a little behind, because they say most people open them and send them right back in, but,
Anything created on social media, I'd be willing to start sharing as soon as someone approves it.
yeah.
How's that?
I don't know, we probably need like a special meeting to approve the language, or I don't know if that's something we can do.
Could we create, kind of like what we did with the cultural group that we talked about? Could we possibly create a 3-person board committee, just so we can streamline what we're saying? Even if it's just do an informal email, like, this is what we're doing as a group, and I think that would pay
To Mrs. Helton's
dividends.
point, I think the board has to approve the mailer, so we might need a special meeting. So if that's something that
Like
you can
Friday.
have ready to go, I'm certainly available to be part of a special meeting. We just need a quorum.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and a certain amount of window of time to announce the meeting. So,
Mr. Hawkins?
how far off would you be, or the administration be, on putting together just a FAQ sheet, simple, and points of what we've done with this money in the past? You said
How
you
far
kind of
away
looked
are-
at it and worked on it, or?
I think we have a start, you know. One of the things I was, Mr. Gearhart saw my graphic abilities today, I believe. You know, I think the side that I would need assistance with is more is the creating the graphic that goes with that. Kind of like the infographic that we use for the Return to Learn. What do we use? Canvas. So something like that. Today that was a mesh of Microsoft Word and PowerPoint, and I just kind of put it all together. It worked.
Yeah.
But I think Canvas, the one that Stephanie created, was
Listen, even if it's not a flyer, if it was a letter on school letterhead saying,
Yeah.
this is coming up, this is what we've done with it, it's a 0 increase to you.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can't say vote yes, but in the most positive light, we could mail that out instantly and then still get some flyers to share, however. But
Yeah.
even on, I think letterhead, we're okay as long as we don't promote a yes vote and just give the facts. That would be.
That actually might be even more effective in some ways, because you get so much campaign literature, you might just, you might get lost in the shuffle with other stuff. So if we got a letter specifically addressed to,
I
don't know.
agree. I think the letter idea is the straightforward, gets to their house. You can email a letter, you can put a letter up on any of the social media sites, you know, so I think that might be the short string to get it out there.
And even if we get the list and send it to the absentees, whoever had on, it's going to be a ton, but
Yeah, we can-
quick and
Yeah,
easy
we can get that list.
and be done. Yeah.
I'm sure Ms.
so use that as our first layer of modalities, the mailing.
Yeah, the mailing to the absentee for sure, get that out
Okay.
there, and then,
Mail and email,
Or-
right? Yeah.
yeah, mail and email, yeah.
Comment, because of the way that we have that fund set up for the enhancement millage, it's very easy to see what we have done with the enhancement millage. So that one will be very easy, and Hold Harmless as well, because Hold Harmless is a major part of our funding. So it should be fairly easy to put that together.
Did I hear volunteer?
That's what that sounded like.
Didn't it though?
Yeah, I would help you with that.
We have a resident expert on where that
We
funding
do.
went.
Are we thinking we may be able to hold an emergency meeting sooner for that, so that it would go out before absentee people vote? Like, I mean, I don't want, I know that everything's stressful. I'm wondering if we might be
Still
able
such
to do
thing.
Well,
it by
can we make a
Friday.
motion to approve the administration to come up with
Oh,
a
yeah.
mailer,
Yes.
mailer on frequently asked questions regarding the Hold Harmless and the Wayne County Enhancement Millage, and send it out to absentee voters?
Motion by Mr. Hawkins,
Motion by Mr. Hagen,
Support.
support support by Mrs. Drake.
If it's an email committee, I will join.
But I think we
We
just
all
send it
know I
out.
can do that.
Mrs. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. French is a yea. Mr. Gearhart?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Helton?
Yes.
Mrs. Howie is absent. Mrs. Lear?
Yes.
And that motion just carried.
We might have to read that to.
So
Okay,
the
we vote
motion
on it.
should have language though, so you need to hear what that language is? Mr. Hawkins?
Yes, please.
Trying to remember what I said a second ago.
It was good. I should have recorded it.
To authorize the administration to create a frequently asked questions mailer of the hold harmless and the Wayne County enhancement millage to be mailed to absentee voters. ASAP. I added that at the end.
Are we sure about the absentee? Is it going out tomorrow? Is that confirmed?
Well, my neighbor's the clerk, and I just casually conversation, I think that's what she said, is
Okay.
tomorrow, so,
Well,
So we
I'd
needed this
call
done
up there just in
yesterday.
case, yeah.
yeah.
What's that, Mike?
Call up there just in case. and
Yeah,
see.
we could call and confirm that, but.
Tell her to wait till Friday.
It would be nice, but yeah, we'll work on it.
Okay, I think we took care of our action there. Anything else, Mr. Merzger, on that one? No? Mrs. Farrell, anything else?
Oh, I have nothing else on that.
Okay, we'll move to 5.05. Schedule procedure for reviewing Neola policies. Mr. Menzer.
So this process I've kind of explored it, this actually started back in December of 2019. And Ms. Miles and Mr. Wakeham put some 20 to 25 hours into this process of updating board policy, and then it went to Neola, and then that's, in essence, you have that first clean draft. And so it's a multi-step process, and the idea is that we're getting our board policy up to date, and the whole function, and I don't want to be repetitive, but just to make sure we understand, Neola really serves as an entity to make sure that we're following new state statutes, federal laws, guidelines, regulations, administrative rules, court cases. So the idea is that it's, I guess for lack of, but it's the watchdog of what we're doing. So, so our first step in that, getting us to that next level of adopting board policy, was the section 0000 and the administration section 1000. And so tonight we're really doing our first reading, or you've basically already have done that. And so 0000 includes information relating but not limited to board vacancies. And what I did is I just pulled out some things that are relevant to kind of where we've been as a board the last few weeks, for a few months I should say. Committees, what closed sessions look like, what public participation looks like. And then in section 1000, administration, there's information related to but not limited to the appointment of the superintendent. Pulled that out for a specific reason. School administration evaluations, non-discrimination and equal employment opportunities. And with that, the appointment of Ms. O'Connor and Ms. Thorne, who are respectively our Director of Curriculum and Director of Special Education. There are compliance officers in that respective area. And then lastly, section 1662 is specific to anti-harassment, which includes bullying, teasing, threats, intimidation, stalking, etc. So the idea is to get that to you, give you the opportunity to read through it. And so from that, I would pause at this point, and I'll solicit, as you reviewed it, did you find anything that you felt that was substantially maybe wrong, or, because from what I've gathered, if it is something like that, that's most not typical. So the idea is that maybe you found a few lines or a few things you weren't comfortable with or content with, and that's where you have the floor now to share that a little bit. And then the idea is that we would collect those, make those changes, and then formally adopt those policies at our next meeting. That would be the process in which we're subscribing to.
If this is what we were going to formally adopt, there were a couple clarifications in the first draft that we had, the 1000, the 000, and it was 0112. I think that's on like the fourth page, just the purpose. Board of Education exists for the purpose of providing a system of free public education for children in grades kindergarten through 12. I don't know if we want to change that to young 5, something else, to whatever that may be we offer, whether it's preschool, young 5s. Just a quick clarification on that one.
Our young 5s is actually considered kindergarten by the state of Michigan.
Is it? Did we
Yes.
offer any other?
And the
early-
GSRP preschool program is a part of an MDE grant, so it's funded from the state of Michigan and not Trenton Public Schools.
Okay, so we're good there then. Okay, that was my concern. Another one was 0167.3. That's a ways, I think there was just a duplicate. I've read it 10 times and I can't find a change. Letters O and letter P look to me to be completely identical. 167.3. Looked like it was just copied redundant.
You saw that too?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then on the other one, I had 1623, still had Ann Deneroff's name on the bottom of it. And I know we changed the other ones, but I think it was just missed there.
Mm-hmm.
And I had one more. And I know we had talked about this before, 1217. And it was probably 2 years ago when we changed this. And it was under the exceptions policy. And I can't remember what we had done at that point. And if it was under the control of law enforcement personnel, or we added like qualified, current, or retired law enforcement personnel, because there is a LEOSA issue, and I'm not sure if anybody's aware of that, and we talked about it. Not that we were going to have CPL or open care, anything like that, but I don't know if anybody was, I think, yeah, everybody was pretty much here on the board, but exemption A, we had talked about qualified, current, and retired law enforcement personnel, because the retired is under the same qualification, same standard under a LEOSA, and just to see what maybe they have to say about that, or I'm not saying that needs to be a change, but maybe just a question on that. And
I
can
think there's some
give-
options we can choose from, so we
Okay.
can look at what those options are.
All right.
Real quick, while we're right there, on 1217, in exceptions on D, it says inappropriate instead of in space appropriate. I changed the meaning of that. I don't know if that.
Would you give that to me one more time, please?
D, starter pistols used inappropriate sporting events, you just need to space that,
Oh, okay.
just to get a little.
I may even steal those from you just so I have reference.
That's all I saw on those.
Okay.
Anyone else?
On that 1623, you also have Mr. Chika's name under Special Education Director as well. That would be
Chika, 1623.
And in the same light, as the committee got together this last week, we looked over to discuss actions and follow up to our committee purpose. And we thought that we had a couple recommendations for changes, but as we looked at the policy, we noticed that it was very inclusive, and we just had a few things that we pointed out that we thought might need to be added moving forward. And they're very minor. I think it also was pointed out while we were reading through it that there was already a statement of harassment and anti-harassment, and reading thoroughly, it was substantial and clearly written. But we thought we wanted to make it, or ask if everybody else would approve, making it more welcoming as well. So we wanted to add a few words, which I sent to you, just a couple things.
What number are you on? I didn't.
I'm sorry, 5517, anti-harassment, general policy statement. A tiny change, we thought, it is the policy of the Board of Education to maintain and work toward an education and work environment that is free from all forms of unlawful harassment, including sexual harassment. It goes on to explain all types of, all types of harassment and what the community and commitment applies to. But then it also goes through and says that we will vigorously enforce its prohibition against discriminatory harassment based on race, color, national origin, sex, sexual orientation, transgender, disability, age, religion, height, weight, marital and family status, military status. So all that, we liked that it tells us what the protected classes are. We would like to ask that we also include afterward something that says that the school district affirms that it welcomes all students and its community will use practices that are welcoming to all members of the protected classes to promote equality, equity, and in the education and work environment. We thought that was an important thing to add. And one other thought during the,
Where is this?
I'm sorry.
That's in section 5,000.
We don't have that here.
Yeah, and that's the,
Oh, you guys didn't have it in the
It's the-
second
it's the
packet?
second
It's on the last page.
attachment on the
I mean,
agenda.
it's like the last chunk,
So I've got
section 5.
I've got 0, and 1,000.
yeah.
I don't have
So the
section.
difference between them is that the section that you're speaking to is student-specific,
Okay.
and the other is administration. So, that's what I realized too, Ms. Grape,
Okay.
like as I was going through, I actually thought you had old board policy. Then I
Okay.
realized section 5,000 is student, and the section 1,000 is administration. So that same verbiage that you just described is replicated in both sections.
Okay.
Which is, and I spoke with Mark Kleinhaus today, and just to get clarification, and one of the things I thought we could do going forward is move 5,000 up. You don't have to go in order. I wanted that confirmation because of your work and the committee's work. I thought we could move that up to be the next section that we look
Yeah.
at.
So we have
And
not
I'm sorry,
received this
if I'm
yet.
looking at the packet that we have in front of us, it's actually 1662.
Yeah.
There we go.
So
Yeah.
I'm very sorry. I'm reading
Yeah.
off of the one that we got from
Yeah, that's
Rob
fine.
and
That's why I say they're the
and
same.
They
Yeah,
are the
they're the
same.
same.
So yeah, they're exactly the same.
So that's
we
why
get
it was
a new copy or
confusing.
something?
No, we had asked as a committee to review that before this was sent to
I
us.
think
So
it's
we
the
were
old
looking
one,
at the
right?
Okay,
student
so I'm
one.
not missing
No,
something
no.
here.
No, you're not.
Okay, because I only have the copy that we got sent to us.
That's
And it's,
correct.
it's the
Drop
same
it.
And,
language
and
that
I
Ms.
can,
Drake just
yes,
read.
and I can send out, if anybody would like, just the few word additions in them. We did like the policy, we did think it was substantial, but,
It's on the agenda, actually. So
Okay.
if you go to section 505, it's the committee meeting notes and shared ideas document. If you click on that, there's two documents.
Yep, got it right there.
So
and
I just
what we
looked
did
at-
to make it easy was highlight the few changes
Yeah, I
there.
like that better. So you know what's
And
new.
additionally, all I did at the end was something that you had already brought up too, that one of the action items that was requested a couple weeks ago from our community is actually already set in place to happen, and it had already been in our policy. And so I was just pointing out that, and one of the action items being that we post the anti-harassment compliance officers on our website, and it may already be up there now. I just was kind of making note that these things are already in the process of changing, and these things, we were ready to, move forward with them.
So once
Just
we
wanted to call
formally
attention to
adopt,
it.
absolutely. So our next step would be on the 28th to formally adopt these changes, these tweaks that we made, and then that would happen.
Right.
So this is the first time I'm seeing these changes here.
We're
Have-
gonna-
They're not changes, they're suggestions for us to talk
And you-
about.
and
Well, that's what I meant.
Oh,
And then
okay.
at that point, so the changes that you're suggesting, I'm sorry.
We'll
The-
go round robin again in the
So-
next meeting.
Okay, so these will be the next meeting.
Yeah.
These changes then, have you sent these to Neola or an attorney
yet.
for any review or anything
No.
like that? No? Okay. My only thing is we do that before we do anything, because I don't have a problem in principle with some of these things, but some could be taken, it's a matter of perception on some of these, and I don't want to open us up to say, hey, that to me is bad, now, that image is bad, well, it's not bad to me, so we have to be careful of, and I think the idea is fine, we just have to be very careful with wording in what we allow and what we don't allow, so we don't say, we're not allowing this, and somebody says, well, wait a second, you're not allowing this, but you're allowing this, now I don't want this.
And that's
And
really
then we
what-
come into that
that's-
cancel of this, that, and the other thing, so we just have to be very
That's
careful
what
going
Mark will
forward.
do for us, Mark Kleinhans. That's what, he always reminds me that they're not a legal entity, but the idea is that they really do provide you with that feedback so that when you do get into those words, that's why I said anything substantial, you're kind of on your own. If these are their recommendations and you go the other way, but most typically that doesn't happen. It's more like what we've just talked about here, and then to Mr. Hawkins' point, if something becomes somewhat of a gray issue, and he'll advise us of that and let us know that, hey, if it's something extreme, we can't support that, or you might want to use this word, or this is what's been done in other places.
Yeah, the first page one, the sentence, I think it's, I mean, looks fine to me, I don't know, but on page 4, I just wonder who constitutes that as what? One person may say that's bad, one person may say that isn't. Now all of a sudden we have a problem on our hands with something that if we just left out, we didn't have a problem. We don't want to create problems as well. We want to protect everybody, but at the same time, we can't create a problem for the district or start a problem somewhere else because people say, hey, wait a second, now we're going to do this. It just gets into a never-ending snowball that we may not want to push down the hill. So that's my only thought on that.
Understand that. Doing the research, we did get this from other districts and their wording and their verbiage and their lawyers speak. So that is partly inclusive to the fact that some other Michigan schools have rolled to this verbiage also.
Sure.
Yeah, and
part of
Neola
our-
may have that as part of their options that
Yes.
you can pick from as well. I just want to make sure that people doing our policy are
And
okay
I
with our
think
policies.
it's a whole policy, right? So, and I recognize that other districts probably have this verbiage in its entirety, but they may not have our verbiage that leads into that as well. So I think it's putting all the content together, picking out a specific section from some other one that we may have already covered it, we just don't have those words. So maybe it's just a choice of words on how we accomplish the same thing, but adding words and removing words might be necessary. So I think the lawyers will look at that and hopefully give us guidance on what would make sense. That would be where I would leave it.
So the next step on these revisions would be to go back to Neola, right?
Yeah.
And get their sense on the verbiage.
So, yeah,
and
I'll
let us
take
know.
what you've given me. I may ask for clarification through an email or what have you, just to make sure I understand my sloppy writing here, and then we'll proceed to kind of finalize that, and then we'll go back through it in our next board meeting, and then we formally would adopt it, and it would replace old board policy. So,
Okay. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other items?
I would like to close with, for the committee's sake, if that's okay, that
Yeah, absolutely.
this process be received and placed on file, and that our next move is Section 5,000 for students, as the committee's work, I think, should be acknowledged, and we move that forward, and also look at specific to that Section 5517. And so then the next board meeting would be the first reading of Section 5,000.
Oh, you need a motion to support, yes.
Yeah, there's a recommended action if anyone wants to make the motion.
I'll
So we
make that
need to
motion.
make a motion to approve the first draft of these and the schedule for the 5,000, okay?
Okay, I will make that motion.
Support?
Moved by Mr. Drake, support by Mr. Hawkins. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Mr. French?
Mrs. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. French is a yea. Mr. Kierhart?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Helton?
Yes.
Mrs. Howie is absent, and Mrs. Lear.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. French. We'll move down to old unfinished business, 6.01. I'm not aware of any unfinished business. Anyone else? Nope. We'll move on to 7.01, new business. Anyone from the board? Ms. Selton?
I don't know if this is new business or if this is a proper place. I just wanted to mention that something that I've heard from a lot of people in the community, and it bothers me as well, that we get all these requests to fill out forms for our students, and they're not PDF fillable forms, so it requires a student to print it and then either scan it or return it. And that, I feel like, is a harder burden on poor families who may not everybody have access to a printer or a scanner or things like that. So I'm wondering if we could work toward getting forms to be fillable. Also, that seems like something that maybe should have a database, because I know I fill out identical forms for my children multiple times every year, and it would be nice if some of that wouldn't have to be refilled out all the time.
We plan to have MyStar re-enrollment active very soon, so that all those emergency cards and all that can be filled out online
Great.
through MyStar.
That's
So that's coming soon.
I know, to add to your list of
Couldn't
things to
agree
do.
more.
It just it kind of fell down a little
No,
bit on the
I
list.
don't-
I'm sorry.
I cannot understand why.
After the absentee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, that's his part. I'll do the re-enrollment part with Haley.
And I had one other question, and that's about distribution of lunches, and I actually had meant to send an email beforehand. Do we have a time now that's,
Yeah, I sent it out right before, I'm sorry to cut you off, that was
no,
rude.
no, that's good.
The concern is that we were trying to deliver lunches during school time. And initially, that was kind of a knee-jerk reaction to the fact that they spilled it on us, or was it on Sunday, I
Sure.
believe, or it was maybe, so we created a schedule, but now we have I don't know what the best word for it is, but like a stop spot. That's a good way a stop spot, so that kids who didn't have an opportunity to get their lunches now have an opportunity in different locations throughout the community to get those lunches.
So it's,
That went out, I
yeah.
sent it out today, so that'll be
Okay.
updated, hopefully. In fact, and I also sent an email to the principals just prior to this meeting
Okay.
and asked them to share that information with their community and parents as well,
So the spot now, is it just available throughout the course of the day, or what's the?
Well, they'll still have the schedule that you saw before. That'll still
Okay.
be out there. But then at the end of that run, they'll have what I call a stops.
It'll be at the last
Yeah,
day
for 30 minutes, yeah.
Okay.
Approximately
So
30,
won't
35
require
minutes.
anyone to leave class to go get it?
No. And initially, we did send that message out to principals that if students needed a lunch, that they could do that. You know, we surely didn't want to take that away.
Sure.
But
Yeah, just
it should be better now.
Okay, great.
And that will be tweaked as we change
Mm.
our return to learning.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that it was kind of a last minute.
Yeah, it changed on Friday, and quite frankly, it got buried in my inbox, and I saw it right before this meeting, so I got everything back out, so.
All right, wonderful, thank you.
Any other new business items? Seeing none, we'll move to 8.01. We did receive one communication. That was from Samantha Bewick. I just asked that we receive a motion to receive it and place it on file. Moved by Mr. Hawkins,
Support.
supported by Mrs. Helton. Roll call vote, Mr. French?
Mrs. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. French is a yea. Mr. Gerhart?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Helton?
Yes.
Howie is absent. Mrs. Lear?
Yes.
Yeah, the motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. French. We'll move down to our, I guess, third public comment opportunity tonight. This is for any items that aren't on the agenda. We do ask you to state your name and address for the record, and please keep your comment to 3 minutes. We are going to need to put our headphones on in order to hear you. Hold on 1 second. If you do call in, give us a we'll
I think I
figure
got
out how to get
I think I
in.
got it now.
All right. Does anyone log into the Zoom?
I'm looking at participants.
Is it? Okay.
I would say mostly staff.
Megan just joined. Just said that you just joined.
I know, but my audio is, oh, there it is.
Okay.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to 10.01. I'm not aware of any other items. Oh, Mr. Hawkins?
I'd like to make a motion
Somebody call you.
to go into closed session for the purpose of negotiations with the TEA.
So moved by Mr. Hawkins. Support?
Support.
Ms. Helton?
Yes.
Roll call vote, Mr. French?
Mrs. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. French is a yea. Mr. Gerhart?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Helton?
Yes.
Mrs. Howie is absent. And Mrs. Lear?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. French.
Can I clarify,
oh,
who
go
made the
ahead.
motion
I did.
Mr. Hawkins.
and who supported?
Mrs. Helton.
Ms. Helton.
So, thank you.
When we return back, the only thing that we'll do is have a motion to adjourn. So anyone in the public, you won't be missing anything. we've reconvened the regular meeting. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sullivan,
Support.
support by Mrs. Lear. Roll call vote, Mr. French?
Mrs. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. French is a yes. Mr. Gearhart?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Helton?
Yes.
Mrs. Howie is absent, and Mrs. Lear?
Yes.
Motion carried. We are adjourned.